Welcome to the third lecture of Unit 2. In the last lecture, we learned how to put together a reference page. In this lecture, you're going to learn the importance of in-text references, and you're going to discover how to quote sources in your assignments. Also, how to paraphrase sources in your assignments as well. Do you remember this slide from the first lecture of this unit? This quote explains what referencing is, and we looked at it in detail in the first lecture. Focus on the final sentence. Referencing is used to tell the reader where ideas from other sources have been used in an assignment. The way that we alert the reader to the fact that we have used someone else's idea is by making use of an in-text reference. An in-text reference is called this because it literally appears in the text. So it'll appear in the body of your assignments. We'll look at an example of this in a minute. So what does an in-text reference look like? This is an in-text reference. You'll see it highlighted in green. It appears in round brackets and includes the name of the writer or author, in this case Massey University, and the year of the publication, which in this case is 2012. This in-text reference is slightly different to the norm, as the year of publication is normally followed by the page number where the information is taken from. However, in the case of web pages, which do not have page numbers, we can omit the page number from the in-text reference. Note that the full stop of the sentence comes after the round brackets, not before. So, how do you write an in-text reference? First, you're going to start with your round brackets. The first piece of information in the round brackets is the surname of the author, or authors if there are two or more authors. Please note you do not include the initials or the full name of the author, just the surname. Next, we have the year of the publication, and this is followed by a colon, and finally the page number or page numbers if you're referencing multiple pages. Let's have a look at what this might look like in an assignment. Have a look at this paragraph taken from a student essay. Can you find the in-text references? There's the first one. Let's look at this in-text reference. Firstly, it appears straight after inverted commas. This tells us that the words before it are a quote. We'll discuss quoting later in this lecture. The in-text reference starts with the round brackets. We then see the surnames of the authors, in this case two authors, Harrison and Killian. Both of them are included in the in-text reference. What is the year of publication? 2007. The in-text reference is then closed with a round bracket and the full stop is placed after the final bracket. Because there's no page number in this in-text reference, we can assume that the source is a web page. We'll check this later when we look at the full reference page. Here is the next in-text reference. It also appears after inverted commas, so again we can assume this is a quote. The author here is Byland, the year of publication is 2014, and the page that this information comes from is page 181. Here's the final in-text reference, which is also from Byland, but this time page 182. Notice that this time the information is not in inverted commas. So here we can assume that this information is paraphrased, but more about that later. Let's look at the reference list from the essay we just looked at. The paragraph we looked at included in-text references from Harrison and Killian and from Byland. Can you find both sources on the reference page? Yes. Up there at the top is the one from Byland, and there is Harrison and Killian. Do you remember that the in-text reference from Byland included page numbers, while the one from Harrison and Killian did not have any page numbers? If we look at the full reference, you can see the reference from Byland comes from a book, and so it should include page numbers, and Harrison and Killian is a web page. Therefore, it does not include any page numbers. So when should you use in-text referencing? There are two specific cases. Firstly, when you use the exact words from a source and put them into your assignment. This is referred to as quoting. When you quote, you also need to put the words into quotation marks or inverted commas, and you need to add an in-text reference. You also need to make sure that the words you use are exactly the same as the source that you're taking them from. The second time you might use an in-text reference is when you paraphrase words from a source. Here you take the information from the source and you put this information into your own words. When you paraphrase, the words must be your own, but the ideas or information are taken from the source. Because you're not using the exact words of the source, it is not necessary to include quotation marks, but you still need to add an in-text reference, and this is to indicate that the ideas are not your own. Let's look at quoting and paraphrasing in a bit more detail. So what exactly is quoting? Quoting is using the exact words of the author. Exact words is in green and bold because this is really important. The words and punctuation you quote should be identical to the original source. We indicate a quote by enclosing the words in inverted commas. A quote requires an in-text reference, and the in-text reference can appear before or after the quote. Let's have a look at this article from an online newspaper called Ed Digest. Can you write the full reference for the source? If you need to recap, go back and watch the video on referencing newspaper and magazine articles, or have a look at page 30 of the Referencing Techniques booklet. If you'd like to practice referencing this, pause the video now and press play again when you have completed writing down the reference. Here is the full reference. Ensure you got all of the correct punctuation too. If your reference is not identical to the answer, please remember to revise the videos on writing a full reference or make an appointment to get some help from your lecturer or the Centre for Student Success. Now that we have the full reference, let's take a quote from the article. Let's assume we'd like to use this sentence over here. To quote this sentence, open inverted commas and include the exact words from the article. Now that we have the exact words in inverted commas, let's add our in-text reference. First, we open our round brackets. Then we add the author, which in this case is Pearson, the year, which is 2015, and then we add a colon and the page number, which is 62. Close off the round brackets, and we add our full stop after that to indicate the end of the sentence. Let's try another example. Can you quote the first sentence of the article up to the word future? If you'd like to practice, pause the video now and try this example. Here is the quote. Notice that it's written with inverted commas and the in-text reference with the full stop after the in-text reference. Do you see the 3 dots after the word future? These 3 dots indicate that we have not quoted the whole sentence, but we've left out some words of the sentence. If you leave some of the information out of the quote you use, indicate this with 3 dots. This is known as an ellipsis, and we'll talk about this again a little later. Let's turn now to page 14 of the Referencing Techniques booklet. There are a number of different ways that you can introduce quotes in an assignment. This is an excerpt from page 14 of the referencing booklet, which you'll see on the screen. In this excerpt, you can see a variety of verbs have been used to introduce the quotes, such as argue, explain, and tell. We could also introduce a quote with the words according to. Let's apply this to the quote we have just written. We can introduce this quote in a variety of ways. For example, we could say, according to Pearson, or Pearson argues, or Pearson explains. When we do this, though, we remove the author from the in-text reference and include the author's surname in the sentence instead. So we can change this quote that we've taken over here to the one below. According to Pearson, and we've taken our author's surname out of the in-text reference, but we still open our round brackets and include the year 2015 and the page number 62. And we follow that up with the words we have quoted. Page 15 of the Referencing Techniques booklet provides many other ways you can introduce a quote. Try to use a variety of different methods when introducing quotes in your assignment, as this is going to provide variety and interest for your reader. While you may not change the words of the source, you're permitted to leave some of the words out. In academic writing, we aim for a style of writing that is succinct. This means we use as few words as possible to express an idea. If you find a useful quote, but you feel that not all of the words are useful, you can leave words out. You do, however, need to indicate that you've left words out, and you do this by including 3 full stops next to each other. This is known as an ellipsis. Let us consider this example from a journal article by Singh and Mabasa. You would like to use this quote, but your assignment is not about teaching practice, so this is unimportant to your argument and unnecessary to your quote. You can use this quote and leave out the part about teaching practice by including the ellipsis where the words have been omitted. Here is how you would do it. Reflections in teacher education, ... that's where and teaching practice in particular used to be, are considered to be a crucial aspect of the development of teachers and student teachers. The 3 dots or ellipsis indicate that we've left out some words in this example, and the words "and teaching practice" in particular are the ones that have been left out. Note that if you leave words out, the sentence must still make sense. So you have to ensure that it is still grammatically correct. The other way the quotes can be adapted is by adding words in. This is normally done to either clarify the quote or to make the quote grammatically correct. If you add words to a quote, they should appear in square brackets and should not change the meaning of the original quote. Let's look at an example of how we could do this. This excerpt is from a reading called Writing for the World, Wikipedia, as an introduction to academic writing. Let's pretend we would like to quote the 3rd sentence in an essay. This sentence begins with the words, "They must conduct research, summarize, and paraphrase." Now, if we just use the sentence as a quote, the reader is left wondering who "they" refers to. If you read the original source, you will know that "they" refers to students, as they are mentioned in the first 2 sentences of the reading. To clarify this for the reader, the writer could assist by indicating that "they" refers to students. You could do this by adding the word "students" in square brackets. You can see in this example that the meaning of the quote has not been altered. We've just added some clarification for the reader so that the reader understands who the word "they" refers to. Sometimes the quote you would like to use is a quote that the writer of the source you are reading has quoted. This excerpt is also taken from the reading Writing for the World, Wikipedia as an Introduction to Academic Writing, written by Tardy. Here is the full reference for this source. Here, the writer Tardy has used a quote from Bartholomew. You might think this quote is perfect for your assignment. The problem is you have not read Bartholomew, so you cannot write the in-text reference indicating Bartholomew. Bartholomew will also not appear on your reference list, as it is not a source you have read or consulted. But you have read Tardy. So we need to indicate that the quote is by Bartholomew, but you found or read it in Tardy. We do this by using the words cited in, which mean found in. So you would write the quote as normal, but when it comes to the in-text reference, you need to indicate that these words are by Bartholomew, but that you did not read them or find them in Bartholomew, you read them in Tardy. So you would include the details of Bartholomew, the surname, year, and page number, and follow this with the words cited in, and include the reference to Tardy as normal. On the reference page, you'll reference Tardy, as this is the source where you found Bartholomew. So let's recap. What have you learned so far? When you use a source, it should be referenced in two places, on the reference list and in an in-text reference which appears in the body of your essay assignment. An in-text reference includes surname, year, colon, page number, all in round brackets and with our full stop afterwards. Another important piece of information is that the reference list should correspond with the in-text references. So if there's an in-text reference, the full reference must appear on the reference page. And if a source is on the reference page, there should be an in-text reference somewhere in the assignment. Finally, in-text references are included when information is quoted or paraphrased. We'll discuss paraphrasing in the next lecture.